Good morning. I hope everyone is well. We'll give it just one more minute and then we will get started with our goal setting workshop for 2025. Hope everyone is keeping warm. I hope everyone is having a wonderful, wonderful 2025 so far. One more little swig of coffee and then we will work on getting things started. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Kristen, right? And if you are here, you are attending the 2025 Goal Setting Workshop. I welcome you and I am excited to share this workshop with you. My name is Kristen K. Wright. I am a empowerment and leadership coach, and I work with leaders, helping them uh, be authentic and work with their teams to create a thriving environment. Today, I want to focus on a little story as we get started. When I was in junior high, I decided that I wanted to be a dancer. Now, this was inspired mostly by watching MTV and seeing all the joy of the dancers on the television. And so naturally, what I did is I tried to emulate steps in my living room, and then, of course, took all of that practice and all of that wisdom of any 15-year-old, and I went and tried out for the drill team. Now, as some of you may suspect, there were a lot of people trying out for drill team that had a lot of experience. And I'm very sad to tell you all that I did not make the drill team. But today we are going to explore some of the reasons why and all of the things that I have learned in goal setting over the years. As a 15-year-old, not only was I disappointed that I didn't make the drill team, but I didn't understand that in order for me to make that happen, there were so many steps that I missed. So today we're going to be talking about that, and I invite you to take a pen and paper out as you start to put together your goals for 2025. We're going to cover today the the what and why of your goal. So, what is your goal? Why are we even thinking about it? We're going to go over a little bit about what it's going to take to make that goal happen. We're going to talk some about resources. We're going to talk about celebration. And lastly, we will finish with making a plan. So, with that overview, that will give you an idea of how this particular class will go. Let's start with what you want to do. What is your goal for 2025? Looking at the framework of my 15-year-old self, what I wanted to do is I wanted to be on the drill team. I was remiss because I didn't really think about how to make that happen. I just thought I could walk onto the stage and make it work. Since then, I have formulated a plan because that dream, that 15-year-old dream of becoming a dancer, didn't ever die. I wanted to experience that in the future. Um, but I really didn't have a good way to make it happen. I invite you, this is a semi-interactive class. So once we're done with each slide, you certainly can share your thoughts or share your goal. So if you do feel compelled to share what your goal is or what you want to do, just raise your hand and I will call on you when the slide is done. For now, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to work on getting a clear picture of what you have accomplished if you are in December of 2025. So if we're using that dance example as something to think about, I would start to picture myself on the stage having completed a dance. I would have pictured myself learning the steps. I would think about the crowd applauding. I would think about the lights on the stage. I really want you to use your imagination and think about the sounds and feelings of accomplishing this goal, no matter what it is. I want you to think about the opportunities that are going to come from achieving this goal, but really get that visioning in. As you're thinking about what you want 2025 to look like, you are very likely going to be compelled to come back to the vision, right? So for somebody that is a dancer, you go to practice every single day. You may have blisters on your feet. Anything worth having is going to take some work and then you're going to get through it. But there's also going to be sometimes pain, sometimes difficulty. In those moments, it makes sense to go back and picture, what in the world are you doing this for? What is it? And the closer you are to the reality, the closer you are to the sights, the sounds, the smells, the feelings, the easier it's going to be to reconnect to what you want to do. Also, think about, why do you even want to do this goal? Why is it important to you? If your goal is to get a promotion, why do you want that promotion? Really get in touch with the purpose around it. Do you want the promotion because you really want to show that you're better than Jenny down the street? Do you want the promotion so that you can show and help share your growth, and share ideas and create a better team? What is the purpose for why you're doing it? And I, on that first line, it says be honest with yourself, because sometimes we are dishonest with ourselves and the people around us. Maybe the reason we want the promotion is because we want to prove our worth and prove that we're better than we were last year, or that we deserve it. In some cases, maybe you want something to happen because of money. There is a financial incentive to do it. The honesty is important, because if you are pulling the wool over your own eyes, for example, maybe it is motivated by money, but you're trying to act like there's some altruistic reason you're doing it. It's just harder to stay focused. There is no one who's going to judge you for your purpose. Your purpose is your purpose, right? If I think about back when I was 15, and as an adult, when I did learn how to dance, there was a little bit of, I wanted to redeem myself from that embarrassing moment of not making drill team. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And while I probably didn't tell everybody that, I wasn't around, running around saying, hey, didn't make drill team when I was in junior high, but now I want to show that I can do it now. I did keep that a little bit private, but it was always very close to my chest as I learned moves, as I went to class every week, as I did these things. I had to be honest why I was doing it, and it kept me motivated, quite frankly. once you have the purpose in line and you have thought about your reasoning for this goal, it is helpful to write it down. And I know you see people, that suggest putting it, say, on your mirror. So when you get up in the morning and are getting ready, you have a visual of that goal right in front of you. That is exactly what you want to do. You want to see it. You want to remind yourself that this is something that is important to you. Um, Oftentimes, people will put it on a post-it note on their computer that they sit at every day. Sometimes in the kitchen, on the refrigerator, you might put a post-it note or some kind of reminder, eat right today. Whatever encouragement you can find to keep your eye on the prize of this very important goal, you definitely want to do that. Connecting with your reasoning is so incredibly important in making the goal come true. How is everybody doing? Are we thinking about our reasons for our goals? Maybe some reactions to see, thumb up, clapping, all of that. Yay, there we go. When we think about what it's going to take to make a goal happen, that is, oh, there was a question in the chat. Samira asked in the chat, and I'm going to go ahead because it is talking about visualization. I'm going to talk about that a little bit before we go into what it's going to take. The question is, how do you visualize when there are multiple paths and futures to achieve your goal? That is a great question. The visualization, though, is not necessarily about which path you're going to take or how you are going to get there. The visualization is when you are there. So if your goal is to we'll take losing weight, because that's a very popular goal at the beginning of the year. When you're doing your visualization, it's not really visualizing eating oatmeal for breakfast or visualizing exercising every day. It's the visualization of the completed goal. So the visualization of buying the size of pants and the goal weight you want to be, the visualization and thought of how your body might feel, or perhaps if I know for me, I'm a little bit older and sometimes my arms aren't as toned as I want them to be. So my visualization might be those really toned arms. So visualizing is the completion of the goal, not necessarily on the path. Now, what we're about to talk about, what it's going to take to make it happen. Now we're getting into those paths and those different ways. And because there may be multiple paths to your future, that is actually a beautiful thing, because you then are empowered to change the way that it happens. If we're talking about weight loss, you may think that a keto diet is the best way to go, but then find that it doesn't really work. Good news is there are multiple paths and there are other ways that you can achieve the goal that you have set out to do. So thank you very much for that question, Samira. I appreciate it. Let's talk about what it is going to take to make that goal happen. Now, the dance example is perfect here, because when I went to try out for a drill team, there was not a thought that there might be some things that I would have to do to be able to have rhythm, to know about moves on that, on that dance floor. And for a lot of us, we just think about, oh my gosh, what I would love to do is write a book. What I would love to do is get promoted. We don't really spend a lot of time thinking about what happens between the desire to make a goal and the completed product. So it's not necessarily just going to happen because you will it to. It requires discipline, and it requires looking at your schedule and what it's going to take. A daily activity for nearly every goal you can think of is something that can be done to help you stay on track of your goal. When we think about dancing, practicing every day, learning the moves, watching dance videos, um, doing those kinds of things on a daily basis are really going to, number one, help you keep on track, but two, really help you hone your skill set and do better with the goal. It could be, dance is easy to say you're going to practice every day, but let's say your goal is to get a promotion at work. That is something that you want to think of every day. Have you made a connection to somebody that can help you get that promotion? Have you talked about some of the work you've done to make you qualified for that promotion? Something every day, and it can be small and not necessarily hugely time consuming, but really thinking about the daily tasks that you can be doing to make that goal happen. And then kind of take it on a weekly basis. Once a week with dance, I would go to a dance class every single week and learn more and create some accountability. But is there something you can do on a weekly basis? Can you set up a time with a mentor? Can you work with a coach? Can you take a class that really kind of keeps the accountability going, but also involves what it is going to take to make that goal happen? Repeatable behaviors, what you do over and over again kind of defines who you are in a sense, right? You can want to be a dancer, but interestingly enough, you start taking classes, you start performing, you start doing it really well, then you really become a dancer. So finding repeatable behaviors that help define that goal are really going to be important. Um, Reading every day, uh, drinking water first thing in the morning. Um, there are lots and lots of repeatable behaviors that you can find that have to do with your goal. And even if you think, oh, well, my goal is to earn a trophy on Scrabble, right? On electronic Scrabble. Let's say that's your goal. There are still things you can do that are repeatable. If you want to earn that trophy on Scrabble, you may want to open the dictionary and learn a new word every day. But in any goal, repetition is key. Monthly progress is also really important. The timelines are a big deal. When I think about, the 1st of January, I maybe didn't know how to do a time step, but by the end of January, I did know how to do a time step. So evaluating and looking at how you're doing on your progress is really important. Having, now, if you are trying to exercise more, we're so lucky because we have things like smartwatches and step counters that can really help us to measure how well we're doing, or if we're not doing so well, measure and say, okay, what am I going to do differently going forward? It is critical to think about, what is it going to take? What am I going to have to do? And how am I going to be able to look at progress and create some habits that will get me where I want to go? Um, Checkpoints, thinking about checkpoints is also important. If let's take the case of getting a promotion. If you want to get a promotion by the end of the year, um, creating a checkpoint, say quarterly, to say, look, I'm looking to get a promotion. I'm really trying to enhance my leadership style and talk about leadership and be seen as somebody who is empathetic. How am I doing about that? Get feedback. Find somebody to let you know how you are doing and if you are showing up as empathetic, right? Um, how often are you going to do it? What are the checkpoints? If you are in this class today, I've already created a checkpoint for you after in the second quarter, so you can think about and evaluate, how am I doing on this goal that I set forth for myself? What is happening? But ensuring that you have check-in points to see where you are is important. You may decide that the original goal isn't really what you want to do. I may be taking a dance class. I may love the dance class, but maybe I found out that the idea of being on stage, not really my cup of tea. I don't really want to get on stage. So my modification might be, I just want to dance for the joy and for the fun of it. But changing your goal is perfectly okay. That's what the checkpoints are for, to really see, how am I doing? Is this still what I want to do? Is this a goal that is important to me? Any questions or any thoughts on what it is going to take to make the goal happen, or anything that you would like to share? Please feel free to put that in the chat. So far, so good. Very well. We will move on to, who can you rely on for help and guidance? This can sometimes be tricky because for many of us, there is perhaps pride, or maybe we don't feel comfortable asking for help or guidance. But help and guidance is really, really important. I do see that there are a couple of uh, comments in the chat. Arshad has said, I think journaling helps to keep track of goals. Absolutely. And Arshad, we are actually going to touch on that in just a moment. So keep that in mind, because you're absolutely right. Keeping track of your goals through journaling is an important task for sure. Amin, I hope I said that right, says that the goal is to apply for an EMBA program in quarter one. Yeah, good for you. That is fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And I am excited to invite you back so that you can share with us that this has happened and that you are in progress. Good for you. Good for you. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about asking for help and guidance. One thing for sure that I want to congratulate all of you on is you are here on this platform, Leland, which is an incredible platform where you can get support and guidance. It is so important when you're trying to do something. As I mentioned before, some of these things are hard. It's difficult, and having support is really important. There are three types of support that I want to address today that I want you to consider as you're creating your plan for 2025. The first is the ride or die support. So, in a dance class or getting your EMBA, somebody that's in that program that can really understand the pain, that can cry with you, that can go grab a coffee and talk about the things that are frustrating you, but also that will help you through the endeavor. So somebody who is just going through it, and sometimes those things happen organically, but there is nothing wrong with saying, hey, I think this is going to be hard. Can we be each other's partners through this and support one another? I think sometimes even saying it out loud creates a little bit more structure to what is happening throughout the process. The second one, which many of you are familiar with, is education. How can you continue to learn throughout this process? Now, for a lot of you, education is the goal. But if your goal is something like learning how to dance or learning how to tap dance, that is something you want to think about. Is it a monthly class? Is it watching YouTube videos? Is it studying what steps are involved in tap dancing or dancing? But what kinds of things do you need to know to make this goal happen? Um, More often than not, I've seen, and I myself have thought about a goal, and I didn't really think about all the things that I needed to know in order to be successful. Um, Fortunately, we're in a world where education is really at our fingertips through podcasts, through Leland here, um, through internet, Google. I mean, we have an abundance of ways to learn around us, but thinking about, what are the things that you need to know and how are you going to maintain that education is important. Lastly is accountability. Who is going to keep you accountable? Uh, this this person is often somebody in your life who is really good at kind of making sure that you're doing what you said you were going to do. Um, I've heard many times that people choose their children. And throughout my life, in some endeavors, I have also asked my kids, hey, I'm going to learn how to do this. You want to help me? And they are so good at reminding me, hey, you said you were going to practice dance. Did you do that yet? Um, the accountability partner is important, and it is somebody who you trust and love. Um, and also, at sometimes, the accountability partner could be a mentor or a coach. It is incredible how many times I will be working with somebody, and the simple fact that they are going to be coming to their coaching appointment is the difference between whether they wrote a presentation or whether they changed the way they did their PowerPoints. But just knowing that you're going to that coaching session or session with a mentor, or that you're going to see that accountability partner, really changes the game in how you perform. And it does make it easier. It makes it more successful oftentimes. And it also helps you feel like you are less alone in um, going through achieving this goal. Before I move forward, are there any questions or anything anyone wants to say in the chat?
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much for this. Recently, I read a book, The 12-Week Year, and
Oh,
I was thinking about that book as you were speaking about quarterly goals, because before I would set out goals, but I would set out SMART goals with the acronym, the SMART goals, make them actionable, have a date. But for some reason, I felt like I was just going with the wind. until I started
Yes.
looking at it quarterly way and just focusing on one or two big bets and then maybe have a couple of like side quests. So I was wondering what you thought about that with just focusing on one or two big goals and maybe, you do the other things, but you actually focus on one or two so you can actually take stock of whether you actually are moving towards it or doing action, taking steps to move towards that goal versus like, hey, I have these 5 goals for the year and maybe or maybe not I'll stay consistent with it.
Yeah, um, that's a great piece of advice, and I think often, as you described, we see something and we think, oh my gosh, I want to do that. And maybe we didn't really want to do it, or maybe we had seven other things we wanted to do, and we did not do a good job picking the one or two that were really important to us. Um, everybody is different. I know there are some folks out there that can handle, a bucket full of goals, have six or seven different things, and that gives them energy and they move through. And those things may not necessarily be something as huge as, getting an EMBA, or it may be very different. Um, I encourage you to do what is comfortable and what works. If you find that having four things makes you in the department of stop starting and start finishing, which is kind of what you had described. We start all of these goals and we're not really hitting the finish line, then maybe look to change that a little bit. But it is really great advice, to have one or two, or even one, just to figure out what process works for you. I think that's great advice, and I think it's a great idea. Lots of starts, yeah. When I first heard that phrasing, stop starting, start finishing, that's exactly what I said. Oh my gosh, that's me. I am a start. I can start a million projects. I am not so good at taking them across the finish line. So I actually, not only do I have to think about finishing all the time, but there is a day of the week that I've designated for finishing. That's all I do is finish things that day. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty powerful statement. So let's move on and let's talk about something that we don't do enough of in general as humans. And I'm not sure why, because celebrating is so fun. When you have a goal, thinking about from the onset, what celebrations are you going to engage in throughout the process? Start with small pick me ups. Are you going to reward yourself with coffee with a friend, having a piece of taffy, taking a walk at your favorite outdoor arena? It doesn't necessarily matter what these celebrations are. And for all of us, they are going to be different. But man, you know, we forget with all of these steps that it is going to take consistency, it's going to take discipline, and we should reward ourselves for that, and it also keeps ourselves on track. A good rule of thumb is involving some of those people that you are relying on. So we talked about your ride or die, saying to them, hey, if we get this done this week on Friday, we're going to go out to dinner together, or we're going to go watch a show, whatever it might be, but involving some of these folks that your coach, your mentor, your children, your spouse, whoever it is that you are depending on, or working with. There is just something about having someone else to kind of walk with you in this goal that makes it so much better. And then to be able to celebrate with them is is such a nice feeling along the way, right? Now, of course, once you've completed the goal, there are all kinds of ways you can celebrate. Sometimes the completion is the celebration, right? So, when I think about, I did learn how to dance and I did get on stage with people and I danced and I did it well and I knew my steps. And that was in and of itself a celebration. Sometimes getting the promotion is in and of itself the celebration, but don't lose sight of that. Um, I'll just tell a personal story. When I was first kind of starting out on my own, I figured out and I learned how to make my own website. And for those of you who have done that, it can sometimes be frustrating if you don't know anything about tech. And oh my gosh, some nights I was up till midnight trying to figure it out, how to embed a picture in there and make it work the way that I thought. But when it was all done, my husband caught me standing at the computer and just staring at what was happening. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that I did this. I'm just really appreciating the work that I've done." And he said to me at that time, he said, "I've never seen you do that." He said, "You need to do this more often. You're always going so fast getting things done. You don't stop and appreciate and celebrate." And then he took me out to dinner and it was a great time. But I say that to illustrate that often the world moves at such a rapid pace that we get on that wheel and we just keep rolling and keep rolling and keep rolling. And I invite you to take time to stop that wheel for a moment and really appreciate and celebrate all of the small things that you have been able to do. Any thoughts before I go to our next slide? Here is where the things come into play, such as the journal that was mentioned earlier. Um, Now that we have taken the time to really think through and vision it, put it in our head, think about our celebrations, now is where the rubber meets the road and we commit to the plan. So, whatever is familiar to you, if you use Outlook for your scheduling and appointments and things like that, that's where everything needs to go for your plan. So, if the plan is every day I'm going to read 10 pages, you got to put it there so you can see it and you can feel it. If you are a journaler and you know that you're going to be in your journal every day, then part of that plan is going to be, I'm going to write my progress every day in my journal. um, Whatever that is, you want to do that into perpetuity. I heard this was in the arena of self-care, but it was a piece of advice that was really good, that if starting in January, if you like to get your nails done every 2 weeks, that should go in your calendar, no questions, and it should be the number one priority. For this goal, it is very much the same. If you want to read 10 pages every day, then whatever time is you're reading, if you go from 7 till 7:20 every day reading, that is first priority and it should be in your calendar and your time can be committed to that 100%. Um, be sure to again involve partners. So if whoever your accountability partners are, CC them on emails, on calendar appointments. Um, if you have celebrations that you're going to do every quarter at TGI Fridays came to my mind. I don't know why, but if you're going to TGI Fridays every quarter, put it in the calendar. The beautiful thing about that is now, you put it in the calendar and it dings on your phone and there's a reminder and a congratulation. So you get to hear and see your progress in so many different ways. Um, and then we talked about this earlier, but make sure to create check-ins so that you can adjust if it's necessary. You know, if you find that something has impacted your time, and I know we have somebody that's doing an EMBA, and let's say that well, we already are going to believe that you're getting approved and you're going to be in that program. But in that program, let's say something happens and we're going to be done at a certain time, and you need to extend it by 3 months, 6 months. Um, that's okay. But if the adjustment needs to be made, ensuring that you acknowledge that early on so that it's not a worry in your head. We don't let the little gremlins come out and impact our self-talk as we're moving forward. Um, it's okay to adjust the goal. It's okay to change the goal. Um, all of that is just fine. But let's make sure that we know when we're gonna do the check-ins. Is it going to be monthly? Is it going to be quarterly? How is that going to happen? So, and then of course the execution is what's next, and that is always going to be up to you. But all of this is a great start as to how to create the roadmap for making your 2025 goals. Any suggestions or thoughts, or even if you have a best practice as far as plans that work for you? I know we saw journal earlier, which I think is great, but anybody have anything they would like to share?
Yes, I can share. Um, what
Yes.
what works for me is calendar blocking. So the same way you would block your calendar at work and maybe say like this is heads down work, I usually block out I have a there's a quick way to do different calendars. So I have calendar for learning. So
Mhm.
I see like a color code green is okay, this is a learning block on my calendar. So because there's so much information every day, there's like even this, I want to take what I learn here and actually apply it versus like just consuming information all the time. So what I'll do is I'll block out something called learning, and then that'll be maybe 35 minutes of just implementing what I learned today for this. And then another block may be 90 minutes of deep work. So I try not to do more than 4 hours. I try to do up to 4 hours of deep work every day. That way I'm actually getting things done because they even say like statistically, most of us can do 4 hours of deep work. And after that, we're kind of just like multitasking and doing other things and being distracted. So yeah, just blocking out time for learning, blocking out time for exercise. So even something as little as rest, I'll put 15 minutes of break in between things just to give my brain a break. So I think things like that have helped me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it absolutely warms my heart to hear that, and to hear that you are creating that habit now so that you can learn to, one, be self-aware of what your capabilities are. Like you said, the deep work, more than 4 hours, I find myself distracted and I can't, it's no longer deep work, right? But hearing you say that is endearing for me, because many of the leaders that I work with really struggle with doing that. And part of that is because they struggle with kind of putting themselves first and understanding that, you know, how you care for yourself and care for your time really impacts and makes your day better. So thank you for sharing that. That is lovely and a great idea. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Well, this concludes my goal setting workshop for the most part. I do want to invite you to join the check in, which is in April. Also, if you would like to work with me or any other Leland coach, please feel free to do that. My information is on that QR code. And even if you're not working with me, what I would absolutely love is if you wouldn't mind just giving a rating to this presentation. That would be fantastic and helpful for me. And of course, if there is any way that I can help any of you, I'm very excited and grateful to those of you who shared what your goals are and shared these great ideas. You have really inspired me and created some hope this morning. So I really appreciate that. Is there anything else before we close for today? Oh, my pleasure. Thank you all so much. Well, I wish you all the best of luck in your 2025 endeavors and best of luck to you. Thank you very much.